This is my game Mirror Match. Game synopsis. My board game Mirror Match is based off the popular online MOBA game League of Legends, combined into a chess-like theme. The board is influenced from the main 5v5 player map on League of Legends called Summoner's Rift, where they battle it out to take out the Nexus, which is the game's main objective. This is a two-player board game where the main objective is to get the Nexus or goal. The board game will consist of 12 champions to pick from in the draft phase, where both players will pick a champion one after another until 4 champions are picked. Both players will use the same 4 champions on the side, followed by 4 minions, giving a total of 8 tokens each. The players must then battle it out in the board using strategy and the 8-second timer per turn to overcome the challenges they will bring each other and for one to claim victory. This board game is measured to be finished within 10 to 15 minutes, so for maximum enjoyment it's recommended to play best out of 3 or 5 for the most accurate results. In the interaction matrix show examples of how one of the tanks, Poppy in this case, would interact with every single other champion. Key target player group. The target audience will be lower than League of Legends T for Teen or 13 plus and instead be 10 plus. This is because this board game will not contain violence, suggestive themes, crude humor, minimal blood, simulated gambling and or infrequent use of strong language. Additionally, to pick up the game will have a moderate learning curve but difficult to master. To further add, the ages of 10 and 13 demographics show people first learn to play at this age, from children to early teens in regards to chess. Therefore, this board game will have the same application. The League of Legends demographic in 2012 showed that 90% of the player base was male, and in more recent documents show males are still primarily dominant. Furthermore, chess as a game has also been approximately played by males, and statistics show that professionals in both League of Legends and chess have almost always been males. With all this in mind, the habits and preferences are pushed towards a male-orientated group, as it is considered more often than not male children and early teens who go to the library in school times may also play games like chess and checkers with their friends. Looking at Bartle's player type, it can be seen that killers and socializers are at the highest and little to achievers with none to explorers. This is because the two aspects which are full are killers and socializers, as this board game can only be played by 2 players, therefore inherently becomes a socializing game. As for killers, the main objective of the game is to get to the goal. However, it's unlikely to get to the goal without killing an enemy token along the way. Therefore, due to this gameplay mechanic, the game almost forces the player to engage in battles. Game context and gameplay activity system. Though there isn't a set background context for Mirror Match, as the game as it's focused on the PvP aspect, the League of Legends is a tournament that happens in Valorant, the biggest continent of Runeterra, where all the strongest champions from every place go there to participate and fight. Within the lore of League of Legends, every champion had a reason to come fight in Summoner's Rift. For example, Jax was the strongest fighter in Ionia and wanted a real competition, so he went to Summoner's Rift and fights with a lamp to give the opponent an advantage. However, the lore gets changed by Riot every couple of years, so it's safer not to have a deep connection with the lore to the game and keep it purely PvP based like chess. Player activity system. So the player is the player and the opponent. The IO device is the board game. The player tokens are the 8 available tokens for both players. Aiders are the support and tank tokens to change gameplay and strategy for both sides. Barriers are the opponent support and tank tokens, also creating issues for yourself. Opponent is the opponent player, of course, as well as the assassin and carry tokens are mobile and can overcome these obstacles if you're careless. The target object is to get a token onto the Nexus, and the goal state is to get a token actually on the Nexus space. Intended player experience. Looking at Kalos' player attitudes, this board game applies to Agon and Mimicry. This is because the board game naturally brings competition, as it being a 2-player game and only one player can win, so it naturally brings out the competition to win. Furthermore, as the game is perfectly balanced, as both players have the exact number of tokens, time, and the same champion tokens, they both share the factor of having equal probability of success. The second one is Mimicry, as the player who plays together may be friends on an equal level if they both started at the same time. However, when they see online videos online, or the players play the game and see the level the game is at, they would aspire to achieve this level as well. In addition, this board game uses the theory of Plotchkin's wheel of emotion and uses the same three colours as the video game, which are being green equals admiration, light blue equals amazement, and 10 equals rage. To briefly put it, when a player is losing hard, they are more inclined to be angry or rage, as it's the fastest emotion to build. Once they have calmed down, they are then amazed of their opponent for outplaying them and showing the player the skill difference between them, which leads to admiration, where the player also wants to attain the same skill level so it doesn't happen to them again. Key engagement. The triad of engagement drivers explains that when a player is challenged by the game, it feels as though there are too many elements in the game to memorize. But this was also the same as the video game, as the initial learning curve of how to play, what champions do, what items do was very high until they changed the tutorial to be friendlier and have a Mario style self-learning tutorial. Afterwards, mastery of the game is figuring everything out and using the champions with maximum effort and time management. The reward is being able to create the best strategies and the best combos, as well as playing with people on the same professional level. A quick look at flow indicates every time a player learns a new aspect of the game, their skill level improves at the same time. They naturally develop other skills once they start playing the game. For example, when the players are effectively using their turns to move the champions and minions in the right places, they are also inherently learning to control the time they have. Furthermore, the holistic engagement theory in gameplay. This board game uses all three concepts of feel, thinking, and doing. Players who come from the League of Legends scene would play this board game, have the imagination and mindset they are in Summoner's Rift, similar to the idea of players who play Dungeons and Dragons, and they would get into character and begin to role-playing as them, as if they were actually in the situation to make the gameplay feel real through imagination. This would then allow the players who know the game pick champions who may be the main champion to play in the video game, and then subconsciously have the same playstyle. For example, if a player picked Kha'Zix the assassin, the chances of their playstyle to be more aggressive would be naturally higher, as the champion is made to be completely aggressive to the point he can solo carry the game. The situation then adapts into the physical do, as the player would be moving his tokens aggressively to beat through the player in a dominating fashion, whereas the player they're versing may become overwhelmed by this playstyle and go into a defensive playstyle to try to counter them. Design challenge portrayed as unique selling point. The brief I have chosen is Reverter Omnia, and the element from League of Legends I have chosen to reverse is perfect imbalance, which is the concept of not intentionally making the game perfectly balanced, as this creates what is known as meta, which essentially means whatever champion is the strongest in League of Legends at that moment in time and will always fluctuate because Riot consistently patching champions with buffs and nerfs. This also in turn can change what roles and position champions are played in all levels of play, making some champions viable in one patch and giving them a win rate of 55%. And a few patches later, if they are consistently too strong, can nerf them, which can put them on a win rate of 40% and under. The reasoning for this imbalance is the game, with such drastic changes every couple of weeks, allows the game to stay fresh and stops any chance of becoming stale as the game keeps evolving. My task has been to make the game from perfectly imbalanced to perfectly balanced, and this has been achieved by both players using the same champions, the same number of tokens, which is 8, and the same amount of time, which is also 8 seconds. As the game is a mirror match, as both players have the same everything, no player can ever feel cheated, as nobody starts the game with an advantage, unlike League, where in higher levels of play, even before game starts in draft phase, players would pick counter picks to win the laning phase, which can feel oppressive to play against. However, an issue with a board game with perfect balance like chess is eventually, even after years and centuries of play, every single strategy or the best strategies will have been figured out, and a lot of games will tend to end in a similar game to the past or in a stalemate. This game doesn't have this feature, as it follows the philosophy of League of Legends by adding champions in the future, which is balanced towards the game, and with the current champion pool of 12 with no restrictions to what role to pick. For example, picking 3 carries and a support will hold a lot of different interactions and gameplay styles to pick from. Another point is that League of Legends map Summoner's Rift is asymmetrical map, as the camera's view position is a bit off-centered, and therefore in statistic gives blue side an advantage. Even though it's small, this subliminally means that games are automatically won just by the side you were picked as. The win rate isn't 50-50% chance, but sometimes even at 56.5% to blue side and 43.5% to red side. In this board game, however, since it's not a video game, both players see the board but on mirrored sides, and the map is symmetrical, giving no players a single advantage. Prototyping and testing. Here is my prototyping of the game and getting play tested from best out of 5. The video playing right now is the final game where Red Side wins. I had received feedback on this final iteration where instead of initials of the token names, it should just be the pictures of the champion, so it would be easy to recognize by face instead of remembering what the initials meant on every token, which is a good idea and would iterate if the game was going forward into visual development. The player would have liked if there was a chess style clock to keep the timer instead of using the phones, as it was inconvenient even though they got used to the time.